Rock and Stone Miners. I'm your host, Get Good Fox, and welcome to this week's guide for the Deep Dive and Elite Deep Dive, this time for February 23rd, 2023. I'm going to go over what you can expect in this week's Deep Dive and this week's Elite Deep Dive, because remember, the experience is pretty similar for everybody. There are subtle variations between them, so watching me, what I went through, will show you what you can expect to go through. I'll tell you what you could do to overcome the challenges, and at the very end I will give you class recommendations for what I think will have the best chance of overcoming the deep dives. If you want to see these live, remember you can catch me on Twitch at Get Good Fox, or you can see the entire grueling experience there. Let's go ahead and get started though with the deep dive. Our deep dive is going to be taking place in the Salt Pits, which is a pretty good biome, doesn't have a lot of dangerous stuff. It is the homeland of the younger shellbacks, which is kind of annoying, but remember, you can shoot through their hides. They don't have the full armor of the adult versions. Mission 1 will be a Hazard 3 difficulty mission, and you'll be collecting 250 Morkite and 2 alien eggs. Expect one of the eggs to cause a swarm. Now, this is a very routine mission. By that, if you've done a Hazard 3 mining expedition before, then you've done this mission as well. It's there's really no surprises or anything like that. My tips would be gather up all the nitra that you find. You don't have to get the gold. The gold doesn't actually amount to that much value in a deep dive in particular, so get the nitra, get the gold if you want, pass it if you want, and move on to Phase 2. Mission 2 is going to raise the stakes to Hazard 3.5. That's it. I don't think the 0.5 is really the deciding factor. It feels like Hazard 3 to me. Objectives are to salvage 3 mini mules, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Remember, all the mini mules will give you a bit of nitra and gold. You will have to go through the complete pod repair sequence. You'll have to go through all the defensive scenes and get that downed drop pod back online. In addition to that, you're going to have to collect 2 alien eggs. Expect one of them to contain a swarm. There's a mutator in effect, which is Elite Threat. This will cause some of the enemies to be considered elite. Most of the time, you'll find it to be a Praetorian. The way you identify them is they're a bit bigger, they're faster, I guess they're stronger, but they mainly glow red. I don't find them to be too much different than a normal Praetorian, because most of them are going to be, they could be other things, but most of the time it's going to be a Praetorian. So I don't think the Elite Threat is really going to be much of a factor in this particular mission. As far as the mission review goes, it's going to feel like a pretty normal Hazard 3 salvage op, so if you've done one of those before, it should feel very comfortable. My main advice would be at the very, very end when you're defending the objectives, make sure if you're going to summon turrets or if you're going to call in an ammo pod, do it close enough to the objective so that if you need to reload your turret, you don't have to leave the objective range. Same if you got to get ammo, you don't have to leave the objective range. You need to capture those as quickly as possible so that, one, you don't have to be tied to it, meaning you can run around and be evasive, and you're cutting off the supply of enemies, because once you complete it, the enemies stop spawning, you can mop them up and continue. Anyways, let's move on to the final mission. And Mission 3 will maintain the difficulty of Hazard 3.5. Your objectives are to protect the drill dozer, so an escort mission. You'll also have to collect 2 alien eggs. One of them will create a swarm. There is a mutator in effect, which is lethal enemies. What it does is double specifically melee damage from the enemies. That does not mean any projectile attacks, so Macteras do normal damage, and anyone who can stomp the ground, create shockwaves like a oppressor, you don't have to worry about that doing double damage because they don't consider it melee. As far as the review goes, definitely the spiciest of the 3 missions. They're going to do way more damage, so they can be quite dangerous if they get around you, especially like swarmlings or like a slasher. But here is your big counter. There is no Mission 4, so that means all of the nitra that you've got, you could just throw it at the enemy. Just call in those drop pods and just blast the enemy away. Just triggers down, use all of your grenades. You could even just gather the ammo just to heal yourself. You could just use all of the nitra, and there's no point in saving any of it. The big part, though, is going to be, of course, at the very end where you've got to have Doretta drill the Amarin Heartstone. Here are my tips here. 1, to deal with the rocks, it's good to have a character like the gunner or the engineer, someone who can just shoot and shoot and shoot without reloading. Any of the gunner's primaries will just rip the rocks to shreds. The engineer's turrets can do quite good, as does his Shard Diffractor. And then you'll also have to deal with the beamers. Here, the driller and the gunner are pretty good. The driller can just drill the base of the beamers and destroy it, whereas the gunner can actually use his primary weapon, which actually does break apart chunks of rock, and he can shoot off the tips of the beamers. And if you you have any overclocks or any perks that allow your weapon to destroy the terrain, you could use that to take out the beamers. Another thing, though, is don't have more than one person repair Doretta. It doesn't do anything. Just one person at a time repairing Doretta. It's all going to be good. And lastly, they did have one trick up their sleeve. A bulk detonator appeared at the end. It doesn't necessarily mean you too will face a bulk detonator, but just keep it in the back of your mind and be ready for a potential bulk detonator at the very end of the escort. But there we go. Let's move on to the Elite Deep Dive, which is going to take place in the radioactive exclusion zone. So already off to a nasty start. Mission 1 is Hazard 4.5. Your objectives are to kill 2 dreadnoughts, expect the twins and a hive guard. You'll also need to recover a black box, which is the same thing as doing one of the defensive scenes in a salvage op where you've got to capture one of those like utility devices and stay within the green area till it finishes. There is a mutator in effect, which is a cave leech cluster, which means lots of cave leeches. Let's talk about that first in the mission review. So cave leeches, I would expect to find about 7 to 9 of them. They were clustered in maybe 2s when I played. I wasn't able to confirm all of them. Overall, the scout's really handy here because the ceiling flares will help you find them. Just easily neutralize them. Otherwise, use the buddy system. Go in pairs, don't go off alone, because that's where the cave leeches are really going to prey on you. As far as the bosses go, first we'll talk about the twins. Anytime you're fighting one of the dreadnought bosses, the sludge combo is really good. Sludge combo is to take a driller with the corrosive sludge pump, and then take the call it wave cooker as a secondary and choose the contamination transmitter. Sludge them, hit them with the wave cooker, and that will slow the enemy down a lot. Once they're super slow, they're actually really, really easy to take down. As far as specifically twin tips go, try to damage them evenly, because when they heal, the lower health one catches up to the higher health one. So if you keep their health fairly similar, it actually sabotages their healing quite a bit, and you don't want to spend extra ammo. You need to save as much ammo as possible. Try to fight them at like mid-range, because they have some shotgun like fireball attacks, and if you're too close, you won't be able to avoid it. And also keep moving, because some of them like to erupt underneath you, which is really, really annoying. Then for the hive guard, once again, you got the sludge combo. One nice little trick is if you pheromone the hive guard, it will cause the sentinels to attack it that he summons. That won't do any damage, but it'll keep the sentinels off of you, and it'll cause them to congregate around the boss, makes them easier to kill. The main thing here, though, is do not make the boss vulnerable to health damage until everyone is ready. If someone's reloading, don't do it. If someone needs to get ammo, don't do it. Wait until everyone is ready to do damage so that you don't waste ammo, you don't waste an opportunity to do damage. Also, beware of the boss. When he is vulnerable to health damage, he will shoot out those crystal mind stomps, and those do a lot of damage. As far as the black box goes, it's going to be like tight, close quarters. You're going to get attacked from both directions in a cave, so check your back periodically. Like every 15 to 20 seconds, just look behind you to make sure that they're not there. Use disruption tactics. So the engineer is really good here. You can use the proximity mines. You can use lures. The scout is great here. Pheromones will force the enemies to attack each other. Also, the gunner shield. The gunner shield will let you stay inside of the objective even longer, lets you revive people, lets you get ammo safely. Those are going to be the best ways to get that black box. And like I said, grab as much nitro as you can, because next mission is the tough one. So buckle up. This is mission 2, which is raising the difficulty to hazard 5. You're going to collect 7 a quark, so it's a point extraction, and you've got to get a black box just like last time. But here's the big deal. There's a mutator in effect. Warning, Mactera plague. That means a lot of the enemies, maybe most of the enemies, are going to be Macteras. Every Mactera. It's going to be goo bombers, trijaws, brundles, regular, just Macteras everywhere. It is awful, and you're going to want to just get the objectives done, just get out of there as quickly as possible. Here is my review of the mission. Super dangerous. Beat it and get out. Step 1, get the black box done as quickly as possible. Remember that in a point extraction, the enemy spawns get faster, so do it when the spawns are slow. Well, slow by hazard 5 standards. The second issue, though, is that unfortunately the black box is completely exposed. To complete 360 encirclement, which is not hard when you're fighting Mac Terras. They're going to goo bomb you, they're going to spit at you, they're going to bombard you. It's just not a good time. You are going to need to use disruptive strategies in order to stay in there long enough to survive. That means pheromones to make them attack each other. That's going to mean stuff like lures to get them off of you. That's going to mean stuff like throwing a gunner shield bubble down so that you can reload, revive, and just stay inside the objective. Just get that objective done as quickly as you can. After that, you just need to get on those Quarks. That's it. Get that scout out and start getting on those Quarks. Scout and engineer is going to be great here because the engineer can give you the platforms that the scout needs to get them. Just get your 7 Quarks, get the defense objective done, and just hit the button and leave. In those last 2 minutes of surviving, that is your opportunity to just find any nitra that you can, but just get this mission done as quickly as possible. The Macteros are just too dangerous. If you do want a few tips about it, remember that you can kill them instantly by freezing them. That said, you will have to give up the pheromones in order to have the cryo grenades. You'll also have to give up the sludge pump in order to get the cryo cannon out, so it's just not great. It's not good. The Minehead can help you with its automated turrets to a degree, but there's just so many enemies that the system is just going to get overwhelmed and it won't be able to thin them out very much. Your best bet, beat the mission as quickly as possible. Let's conclude, though, with the third mission. Difficulty raised to hazard 5.5. Objective is to collect 250 Morkite and, once again, recover another black box. And there is another mutator in effect. Rival Presence. Expect a nemesis and a turret controller in addition to just the standard patrol bots that are going to attack you, as well as the periodic shredders that are going to attack you. So my mission review here is that this one I don't think is as bad as the previous mission, but the enemy will still attack pretty frequently, and you're probably not going to be in the best ammo shape here, so you're going to need to move quickly, thoroughly, though. Make sure you explore, grab all the nitra, don't dilly-dally, though. Anytime that you just kind of be, what do I do next? Just pull up the map and go somewhere you haven't explored. Do not waste time, or they're just going to rip up your ammo by sending more and more waves at you. The Nemesis. Really not super dangerous as long as you listen carefully for his robotic voice, shoot him, draw him to an area that's nice and big, and then aim for the glowing panels. Those are his weak points. If you have a way to slow him down, like if you've got an electrical effect, which will make him go very slowly, that actually makes him pretty easy to bring down. The main thing is that he just takes more ammo, and you're probably going to be hurting for ammo in this particular mission. The turret controller is in kind of an annoying place. Like there's a field of turrets with like a ledge, and so the turret controller, that if you hack it, it will destroy all the other turrets. It's kind of an inconvenient place. If you've got a driller, you can actually drill underneath it and up to it, and then inside the safety of the earth, you can hack it. You can also do that with a scout, but it's a little more dangerous because you're probably going to want to grappling hook up to the controller and then dig down. But remember, the rock in this area is very, very strong. I happen to have the ability to destroy them quickly because I had the Rocky Mountain Brew, and then I was able to tunnel underneath the controller and hack it and just save a ton of ammo. Otherwise, once again, it's going to stress you on the ammo. You also might want to wait for an enemy wave before you start trying to tunnel underneath, because you won't be able to help your allies if you're tunneling underneath the controller and then they get attacked. And once again, the black box, it's kind of like the other it's not as bad as the last one, actually. Like, you don't have to deal with that many Macteras, but same kind of thing. Use disruption strategies, and the black box is not the tough part of this mission. Anyways, that is that. Let's move on to class recommendations. For the standard deep dive, I think Engineer and Gunner is really going to pay off here because there's just a lot of defensive stuff. You got to do the salvage operation, then the entire escort thing, and the Engineer is just so good at that. Like, turrets are obviously good at defending things, but you also have landmines. You've got lures. The Gunner is able to create a shield so that you can hold your ground. You can even throw a shield, like, physically through Doretta. Like, it'll actually pass through her body, and it can actually protect against the rocks that are slamming in if you're not able to get to them. So they're going to just do really, really good. The Gunner's also just really good at mowing down those boulder rocks that are going to attack Doretta. And then, of course, you can shoot off the tips of the beamers at the end of the Amaran phase. For the elite deep dive, I think Engineer Scout is really going to pay here because you need a lot of nitra. In the missions that you can afford to go slower on, you need every bit of nitra you can find, and the Engineer Scout combo is just really famous for the ability to just obtain resources. In addition to that, there is a lot of defensive stuff, so that's where the engineer is going to shine. You got lures, you got turrets, you got mines, and then the scout has the pheromones, which will disrupt the enemy, make them attack each other. You also have cave leeches. Once again, scout is going to play a big role here. You've got to get a quarks, and you got to get them fast. The scout, the engineer are going to be really good at getting those quarks, and in the rival battle, in the final elite deep dive mission, the scout's really good at avoiding the nemesis because of the grappling hook, and you do have an opportunity with the scout to undermine the turret controller. It's a little risky. You might not want to go for it if you don't have the Rocky Mountain beer to get through the rock very quickly, but it is potentially a big payout. You could save a lot of money doing it. The main problem here is if you go with the engineer and the scout, the bosses are going to be a little bit tougher. Fortunately, the twins aren't that defensively capable, so it shouldn't slow you down there, but with the Hive Guard, there is a lot of potential to waste ammo, so the main key is to make sure you do not knock down the different organ nodules on the Hive Guard until everyone is ready to do damage in order to maximize your ammo. Those are my recommendations, though, for today. Hopefully you guys are able to get your Matrix cores. Let me know what you think down in the comments section. Remember, you can catch these videos live on Twitch, where I do every Thursday. I go through the deep dive and the elite deep dive. And if you miss an episode, you can find it on my other YouTube channel at Get Good Fox VODs, so that if you don't like Twitch, you can catch it there. Tune in next week, though, for more deep dive and elite deep dive guides. Remember, though, at the end of the day, that you don't have to be good to get good.